So I have a lot of people who ask right off the bat, what is Arcus? Arcus is it's probably one of the clouds that I freak out the most over if I see them in person. Megan, sorry, I have to say it, on her way to Colorado Springs from Pueblo, saw it today. It's the shelf of the cloud underneath the cumulonimbus clouds, which are the big storm clouds. Think of it as almost like a plow. I know that sounds so very strange, but it's kind of like an analogy that I can understand. It's the begin, and I watched them all the time on Lake Michigan. I was a Lake Michigan hermit. I went to school on the west side of the state of Michigan. I've lived here for almost 20 years, and here we have an opportunity to see the clouds so much sooner than I would have ever in Michigan. However, that lake allowed me to see them for, it seemed like hours before they got to you. So that's probably where my obsession with clouds came from. It wasn't, gosh, it's only been like the last 10 years where I've kind of become a fanatic though, where I started reading how to read nature, how to read weather, and all of these different outdoor books regarding the clouds themselves. So I would say probably in the last 10 years, I've become more aware of what the clouds mean and what story they're telling. So with that being said, I do want to show you, I'm a very visual person, obviously. I want to show you where my mind was when I was creating this exhibit. So we have Arcus, and every time I look at my phone, at the clouds, there's always a disruption in the image. There's a windshield, there's a reflection, there's a telephone pole, there's a flag, there's an umbrella in one of these pictures. But what I did here is I printed, and the image, like, quality is not great. This is from my printer. Mind you, I was using these as references from my phone, so the quality is much better on my phone. But I wrote little notes on what the disruptions were. And I would get so angry, like, why does this have to be behind a windshield? Why is it like, and yes, I could crop it out, right? But if you're anything like me, like, my eye keeps going toward that interruption and I can't unsee it. And if I crop it, then I crop half the cloud and it just doesn't work. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you gosh, I don't know how to do this. You could take these and then I'll start like reverse. And then you can have these and you can pass, like, I left little notes in there. And there is one funny one in there. Hopefully no one's offended by it. But it was funny because this cloud had like perfect non-interrupted images. And of course the cloud had to look the way it was. And you'll see which one I'm talking about in here. And it's hilarious. And of course, I'm like, of course this is what happens. It's like, seriously, is this what the universe is trying to tell me? It's ridiculous. You guys probably saw it. I'm like, I get the perfect shot. And this is absurd. I forgot about that. I'm sorry. That is too funny. So you can hopefully understand where my frustration comes from. So at one point, I was just like, forget it. Why not embrace it? Not that cloud, but maybe I'll paint it one day. I actually sent that to a weather guy that I follow because I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, this is just, I think it was coming out of Trader Joe's or something ridiculous. So anyway, what I wanted to do with these paintings is I wanted to create the juxtaposition that we have to deal with. So the human-made objects, the telephone wires, the flagpoles, the windshield, and I embraced it with this exhibit. What I did is I incorporated my underpainting showing most of them are hopefully obviously human-made straight lines, human-made drips, condensation. I don't know what the heck is wrong with my van, but every time we come back from the Gulf from visiting my sister, I can't figure out, we don't have humidity here. We don't have condensation on our interior windows. But when I'm cranking the AC from the Gulf, I'm like, this is ridiculous. All these pictures have the condensation drips. But I was like, why not embrace this, make it part of my artwork? So oftentimes what you'll see is me taking a risk with the artwork and saying, okay, what happens if I painted this with paper towel? What happens if I let this, like, for instance, this one has rust, like we were just talking about rust. This one has rust underneath. It has iridescent pigments that if you look to the side, you'll kind of see it. But there's these swipes that I use linseed oil and a towel to get these unnatural effects, because that is what I see every single time. There's an image in there that you'll see, the one that says I was frantically yelling at my husband to take a photo. I was like, Andy, get the camera, and take this photo. We were driving, it was from the Gulf, we were in Texas, probably almost to Amarillo, I think. And there was a dust storm on one side, and the lighting and the layers took my breath away. And I knew he was gonna have to get it because my husband is not, he's not fast enough. I'm just kidding. But no, he didn't get the shot. I mean, he got it with the windshield. So there came a time where I was like, okay, I just need to embrace these imperfections that I see in every single one of my resources. They exist anyway, they're not going anywhere. So I decided to embrace those with these paintings. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. A lot of these are acrylic painting underneath with oil on top. So yes, all oil paintings, all of them done on canvas, but you'll see these interruptions, like the power lines inspired me to do these horizontal lines here. It was really fun to experiment and be like, okay, you know what, try to get out of, I do a lot of atmospheric work, whether it's in caustic or oil, but with this exhibit, I wanted to introduce these imperfections. And this kind of brings up another odd thing. I have people say, why do you do your sketches on cardboard? I taught middle school for 10 years here, just up north, and I used to do a project on cardboard. One, because yes, it was readily available. I mean, we had tons of cardboard that I could source for this project. But it was a charcoal project that I would work with, just like these, that I would work with on cardboard. And the students freaked me out with the amazing drawings that they did on cardboard. And I started to say, and we knocked it out of the park with awards in the school awards, like they have the Young People's Art Show and the Air Academy shows. They have these really cool exhibits for students. And I was like, I can never get rid of this project. And I started to dive into the psychology behind it. It's because it's just cardboard. It's not an intimidating piece of stark white paper or a beautiful brand new gessoed canvas. It's just cardboard. So the students, therefore, took more risks because it's just cardboard. They're not intimidated. Their shoulders are like, oh, they're relaxed. They're like, all of us in this room probably remember what it's like drawing on restaurant menus, right? The paper menus. You're like, how did I just draw this? It's on a restaurant menu. It's so amazing. So anyway, I could go into that for a long time because my students blew me away. They were so dang good. But those drawings, clouds were intimidating to me for a long time. So this was an exercise that I introduced to them that I was like, I'm going to try this too. And I have tons of those. I just brought a little handful, but I wanted to do the same thing. And of course, it led me to approach this in a more of a can-do attitude than being super intimidated by it. So that's where that came from. That's kind of the thought process behind this exhibit. It is interesting to see, and some of them, they're hidden a little bit more, where the human-made juxtaposition is kind of disguised a little bit more, but you'll see them in every one of these paintings. In oil, I think for more of the precise approach that I wanted to go toward, because in caustic, a lot of my artwork is in caustic. I would say 50-50, oil paints and encaustic. More oils lately. Encaustic will always have my heart, but the oils are a little bit more precise, and I could get that, I could nail my juxtaposition a little bit more with the oils, I think. Because as soon as you take a torch to encaustic, if any of you have ever experimented with it, it is who knows what's happening. And I do have a lot of work that is done in encaustic right now, but it's not work that needs to be so extremely precise. The acrylic underneath, because I wanted to get some super vibrant, bright colors and just to experiment with, and if I didn't like it, I could paint over it, because oil paint works wonderfully over acrylic. And this is actually acrylic ink, so like the super intense bright areas, I was able to experiment and find quicker results too, I guess you could say, rather than doing oil paint underneath and then waiting forever for that to dry, because it takes a long, long time. So it was a little bit faster, and honestly, for the experimentation, I would say, yeah, because I didn't quite know if it was going to work out, but it ended up being a real fun experiment. I normally I have to be in a certain mood and do it. Like, even if it's over several days, I just have to do that one in one sitting. With this exhibit, I did let it rest and came back to a lot of them. Yeah, so that's crazy that yeah, I had to let it rest and come back to a lot of them. I mean, one, because they're oil, probably. If there was an area that was bothering me, I'd have to wait till it dried anyway. But yeah, no, yeah, these were quite different. I didn't even think of that. So I did have another fellow artist who walked into this exhibit, and she's a stunning artist, and she walks in, she goes, "What?" She goes, "What happened to you? Something must have happened." She goes, "These are really dark. What happened?" And I'm like, "Shit, nothing. What do I come up with?" I don't know. I'm like, and then I'm like, of course, analyzing my life in the last year and a half. I'm like, did something happen? Did something happen? Nothing happened. I swear, I was just experimenting with color, and a lot of it came out like I wanted more contrast. It was simply it, but it was so funny, and I just kind of let her roll with it. I don't know if that was the right thing to do, but it's just funny to think about that. So, and yeah, that one was fun. So while this one was still wet, I've been using a lot of paper towel, which sounds so weird. But I started from the top. Actually, this one was brush. Started from the top and brought it all the way down, which is hard. Like, part of me is like, okay, I'm totally smearing this high contrast area. Is it going to be okay? But just a dry brush. Yep. So the drips, and on like this one, you'll see like glares. That's linseed oil, and that I put on afterward, because I wanted just to kind of embrace those effects that I've seen, striving for perfect cloud images. Thanks for being here, you guys. Thank you.